It's now my distinct honor and privilege to introduce the President of the American College of Radiology, Dr. Alan Kay. One of the benefits of working within the college over the years is getting to meet some very remarkable people. One notable couple is Dr. Alan and Adrienne Kay. As former council speaker, Dr. Kay has served the college and his chapter for over 25 years. In addition to serving on the Board of Chancellors for the last 7 years, he is currently president of the Connecticut Radiologic Society and a member of the Future Trends Committee and the AI Advisory Group and various other committees. He has a keen interest in state government relations and has served as chair of the ACR State Government Relations Committee and led many local efforts in his state chapter. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Kay for his ACR presidential address this year.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the council, fellow ACR members and guests. Permit me the liberty of allegory. My name today is Rad Van Winkle. I started my career as a full-time clinical radiologist. After 10 years, my role rapidly evolved to mostly administrative, which lasted for 22 years. In the last 2+ years, my ratio of clinical to administrative has reversed, and my clinical has included a lot of emergency and outpatient imaging. I want to share with you my perspectives on what has happened during my metaphorical long sleep. There we go. First, the most notable change is that the work process of radiologists has changed, and so has our place in the process of care. Job satisfaction and job security have changed along with them. Before my slumber, I learned from resident interviews at my hospital that radiology was one of the road specialties, the road to a good lifestyle. I don't know if this is the first time that you're hearing about this, but what was your reaction when you first did? Mine was a big uh-oh. This is not why people should go into our wonderful specialty of radiology, and what does this mean about whom we are attracting to our specialty? I awakened to find out that our jobs are grueling now, grueling. Many of you remember this. Sometimes at the workstation, this is what it feels like. Journals and other publications and websites and radiology meetings, including Röntgen Ray, the most recent one, the most recent AUR, and our upcoming Inter-Society Conference, focus on radiologist burnout. Burnout? Radiologists? It seems to be the truth. This recent Medscape survey showed that radiologists have the 7th highest burnout and depression among all medical specialties. When I fell asleep, we were the doctors' doctors, consultants with high job satisfaction. I woke up to find that we are well on the road to commoditization. Productivity, shift work, not unique to radiology. Articles have appeared, this is not a made-up slide, on the McDonaldization of medicine. Richard Gunderman, a member of our steering committee, has co-authored an article in a recent JACR on the McDonaldization of radiology. We are evolving to teleradiologists, even in those workplaces that we supposedly control or own. What is depicted on this slide? We'll get back to this. I don't know why those of you in the audience went into radiology, but this is not the radiologist that I imagine. Each evening, when I arrive home from work, Adrienne asks me, how was my day? I've begun to realize that the good days were those when I participated in interesting diagnoses, conferences, or consultations, learned or tried something new, taught some bright residents, etc. On the good days, I was engaged, important word. The bad days were those when I read 20 PAN scans from the emergency department and completed 100 RVUs. Not really engaged. A career in radiology as a radiologist is a profession, a calling, not a job. Please ask yourselves, what gets your juices flowing? How do you view consultation on a complex case? How do you view calming a patient or discussing his or her diagnosis? Do you show a teenager, bring them into your office and show them his or her x-ray on your PACS monitor? Are these intrusions on your busy day or assertions of your roles as doctors? Are you willing to stay a half hour extra at work every day or on certain days because you do these things? Do you monitor productivity in your practice, and does it determine all or part of your evaluation or compensation? Do you include community, hospital, or ACR service in your productivity formula? There really are no easy solutions to this situation. The ACR's Imaging 3.0 aims to change the culture of practice to what we should have been doing all along. Murray Janauer is in the audience today. He highlighted some of these concepts in his presidential address in 1996, 22 years ago. Thank you, Murray. By the way, this slide depicts a Coulter counter. Closed door, behind which is a dark room, into which go the raw data, and out comes a report with the blood count and a differential. Sound familiar? When I fell asleep, technology was the unmitigated friend of the radiologist. The doubling of technological information every 18 months had fueled growth in multiple aspects of our specialty. The application of computers to imaging brought unimaginable tools for evaluating anatomy and pathology, for presenting thousands of high-definition images, facilitating our rendering of diagnoses efficiently, and for communicating with our referring physicians. Now I awake to the nightmare of nightmares. Machine learning and artificial intelligence bring to mind the unthinkable replacement of radiologists with machines. Even before I took my long nap, the handwriting was on the wall regarding difficulties we have in getting new procedures approved and reimbursed. Witness the barriers we have faced and continue to face with CT colonography and lung cancer screening. These, combined with reduced reimbursements, made me concerned about the development, whether we would have any development, of new imaging modalities like CT, MRI, and PET. And epiphany number one for your enjoyment. AI is really the equivalent of a new modality. Let's view it that way, and has the potential to enhance patient care as much as what we have traditionally referred to as the modalities. AI will extend from pre-imaging protocol optimization, intra-imaging dose modulation, post-imaging processing for image optimization, to complementation of our interpretations. Our ambivalence is understandable, but this concern is not a new phenomenon. How many of you remember a time when the psoas sign on a plain X-ray was the best that radiology could offer to diagnose appendicitis? Then came CT, which raised the fears that it made it too easy to make diagnoses on our patients. So what happened? Acute appendicitis went essentially from a diagnosis of exclusion to a frequently definitive diagnosis with high level of confidence. Healthcare was improved. The all too common and then acceptable 15% rate of unnecessary appendectomies became a thing of the past, and radiologists' roles increased. When PET came along, there were those who were afraid about the findings lighting up. And in color, radiologists are still involved. Epiphany number two. Deb DeSanzo, the CEO of IBM and the parent of Watson, trumpets that by 2020, medical data will double every 73 days. How are we going to deal with that explosion and do as well by the patient? AI and machine learning have the potential to augment what we do and maybe even provide one aspect of a complex solution to the burnout issue we discussed earlier, and it seems to be prevalent these days. Who would not vote to have the screening lung CTs analyzed and the nodules measured by machines? Before I fell asleep, I had regular meetings with the CEO of my hospital. Once he asked me, how do I know so much about what is going on in the medical community? I told him that the radiology department is the Jerusalem of the American world, of the medical world. Well, actually, in many ways, in more ways than one. Just like in the ancient world, where trade routes, the spread of ideas, and the intermixing of cultures all came through that narrow band of fertile land with passable terrain, everyone came through the emergency department almost every day. And we had FaceTime with many physicians. That's how we knew what was going on. Now I awaken, and our reading areas are relative ghost towns. Remember the Coulter counter. Epiphany number 3. IT as the Jerusalem, IT as the New Jerusalem. We're in an information business. Can we use technology to restore the role of the radiologist in the process of care at the center of the healthcare world? Informatics drives so many things. Make no mistake, however, technology, as we all are aware, and AI are tigers by the tail, and radiologists need to be involved and not peripherally. Do not be lulled into a false sense of complacency, however. This is a slide, an old slide from an old publication. Machine learning is not your mother's CAD. It's different. AI will certainly have to pass many tests before becoming mainstream, which is why I'm so excited about the ACR's and our Data Science Institute. You've heard and you will hear much more about it, but realize this, in every poll done of the members over the years that I've been involved, which is a pretty long time, the core strengths of the ACR and those aspects most valued by our members are advocacy, regulatory, legislative, quality and safety, and economics. These strengths will place us in positions of influence for the process that's ahead and for the best patient outcomes. And that, I'm sure, will supplement our expertise and our tools to make us all better diagnosticians. The DSI will be an essential component of responsible use of machine learning and AI in our specialty. So imagine, an image is a means to information, one means to information. All information is in the raw data. Why not use the image? Why do we use the image and only the image and not the raw data? Data collected informs other than the anatomical representation to which we are accustomed might be of immediate utility and better used to make better diagnoses, so-called biomarkers. Imagine tens, hundreds, thousands of incidental findings on every CT scan, not necessarily on an image. What type of information is potentially obtainable? We're going to find out. Imagine PET AI, CT AI. Let's start thinking of AI as the cornerstone of what we can call the new hybrid imaging. Imagine the radiologist as informaticist and IT as the new physics. Resident education needs to include informatics formally, and it should be covered on the board exams. And there are processes in place to get that started. When I fell asleep, we got paid a fee for every service we performed, without regard to effectiveness or appropriateness. Now we are facing alternative payment models, including mechanisms that emphasize value. How do we begin to validate the value of what we do so that we can preserve our pivotal roles in the process of care? Fortunately, the ACR, as you've heard, has formed the Harvey Neiman Health Policy Institute to provide credible, objective, and reproducible research to the national health policy debate. Faster, better, cheaper, choose two. It's still a pretty good law of business and of life. Also, in this new value age, we may need to make some compromises to which we are unaccustomed. On the one hand, will a new development cost more than it deserves in order to implement marginal improvements in accuracy, quality, and outcomes? On the other hand, will we have to alter our expectations and accept a certain level of inaccuracy? Might we be forced to do that, which might be compensated for by lower cost, rapidity of diagnosis? These are knotty problems that we're going to have to face. The HPI can help. Oh, can I go back? Well, you can see from the previous slide that the output from the HPI is impressive. The impact factor, which is cited on that slide, is a measure of the influence of a publication. If the HPI were a standalone journal, it would have the second highest impact factor of any radiology journal and the second highest among all health policy journals. So I, Rad Van Winkle, can say that I awoke to find new tools which have the potential to advance care and the HPI to help us assess the things that we do now and what we will be able to do in the future, thereby cementing the pivotal role of the radiologist in the process of care, enhanced diagnosis, and patient outcomes. Now, as you can gather from Tim's introduction, this is a subject near and dear to my heart. When I fell asleep, Washington was the center of the universe for health policy and garnered almost all of the ACR's government relation resources. Some of you in the audience may remember Tip O'Neill. The states are now where a lot of the action is, with a much higher degree of influence on healthcare now than before. There, we present a voice and a face to the people who make the laws and the regulations. We are their neighbors. We know their families. Your leadership team has recognized this, as you've heard in previous presentations, and we've begun a process to enhance the effectiveness of our chapters in addressing the surge in state-based legislation and regulation. I've formed a work group to analyze the college's SGR efforts, and we have created, circulated, and analyzed the results of a survey of chapters on their needs and how we can help address them. Those recommendations have been presented to the State Government Relations Committee for consideration and action plan at its meeting tomorrow here in Washington. Prior to my extended nap, presidential addresses of Drs. Guiberteau, Pressman, and Thrall, all ACR gold medalists, by the way, contained very strong statements as to how the practice of economically driven imaging undermines the ethics of the medical profession and the economic viability of our healthcare system. That issue has been largely dormant. Self-referral has not gone away, and now there are new forms of self-referral coming to the fore with purchases of medical practices by vertically integrated systems which systematically block the flow of information to and from non-affiliated providers, thereby keeping all care in-house, referrals, consultations, and imaging. And they do this all in the name of coordination of care, better value. Yet, this thinly veiled allusion to value over volume is actually driven by volume. Prevent leakage. We will never attain true value or truly patient-centered care until we break down these silos. Our patients deserve it. Please permit me to mention briefly two other worrisome developments to which Dr. Van Winkle has awakened that may shape the future of our specialty, and even if not, will result in some degree of disruption of our lives. Time constraints will not allow me to dwell on them, but these need to be on our radar screens, and I present them to you. First, consolidation, corporatization, and sale of our practices to finance companies. Proponents tout the advantages of better management, economies of scale, and openness to innovation. No doubt, important goals, and maybe even more attainable in those settings. At best, these should be viewed with healthy skepticism, realizing that there might be overlap. The ultimate goals of the financiers of these ventures are different from what we are as professionals and why most of us went into this wonderful profession. And where will that leave our young radiologists? Keep in mind that history has shown that a decision to give up control of your practice is not easily reversible. And there are several of these disputes going around the country right now. And not infrequently, these result in significant geographic, economic, and professional displacement of the radiologists involved. Next, we're on the precipice of significant divisiveness and strife among our radiologists, and we need to try to mitigate that. Interventional versus diagnostic. Time will not allow me to elaborate other than to call for some intensive scenario planning among leaders in diagnostic radiology, which might be the ACR, interventional radiology, private practice, and young physicians, perhaps a subject for an ACR forum or an inter-society conference. I've saved for last an issue that may be the most important, most personal, and which affects the sustainability of the ACR, the one organization that can have meaningful influence on all of the challenges I've been talking about today. Before I fell asleep, the council could honestly say that we were here to present, debate, and formulate policy. What hooked me on getting involved in the ACR was that through the council, I felt that I could make a difference in many aspects of our specialty. There is no question that the single most gratifying aspect of my presidency is that I have this opportunity to address the council. You are still the inspiration for my involvement in the college and my ascent in the hierarchy of leadership. As council speaker and on the CSC and BOC, I used to hear, "What will the council do?" Or, "The council will do the right thing." Now, when our specialty faces unprecedented challenges, council activities appear to be comparatively rote. At best, rubber stamp at worst. At the speaker's report at last year's meeting, this room was almost empty, as the members were easily distracted by other things going on in the building and the city. Look at this today. This is the way it needs to be. Full room. But here's the quandary. Maybe we don't need a council. If this were a State of the Union message for the ACR, I would tell you that the Board of Chancellors is doing a great job. The DSI, HPI are supplements to avenues for the unique core competencies of the college. Hopefully the SGR initiative, which seems to be gaining momentum, will provide support to very important chapter work. The ACR is financially strong, internationally and nationally recognized, and dominant in many aspects of our specialty. Practice parameters and technical standards have historically been the major focus of this meeting. Now, and for good reasons, most of the work on these is done before the meeting, and input from the council is less robust. We might morph our talented but large Board of Chancellors and Steering Committee into what we can still call the council. We have an executive committee of the board. We could augment that body to create a new Board of Chancellors. What do you think? No way. Absolutely, we do need a council. It is, and you are, the ultimate voice of our members, whom we need to represent. We need to represent. Past leaders have advocated that we need to be a bottom-up organization instead of the top-down one that we are. For whatever reasons, it hasn't happened. One of the goals of my presidency was to facilitate empowerment of the chapters, the council, and the members. We got the message, obviously, from the talks you've heard today, but we've got to follow through. There are signs of hope. This meeting has restored its original purpose of the governance of the college. While the educational sessions, like almost everything we do at the ACR, were excellent, there were unintended consequences, and the main one was that they were distracting from the necessary business and the cohesiveness and the very identity of the council. The CSC has sponsored Resolution 41, which you heard about from the speaker, which if passed will assure that we do not have competition to our governance activities. There are sessions in this meeting, which you've already heard about and I won't go into, that's specifically aimed at reinvigorating our members and chapters, including one that follows this session today. But these are necessary, but not sufficient. The ACR can do so much. We need to go further, and your activism is necessary and hopefully will be sufficient. Revitalization of the council ought to be a top-line goal on our strategic plan that you heard about today. I'd like to see it there, as it would assure that its progress would be under continuous review and by the board and report to you. You, the council, might consider this in the future. The online ACR forum using the Engage platform has had several discussions on important, occasionally controversial subjects, which used to take place on the council floor. There, members are demonstrating that they have passion about the issues facing us and are willing to express their views. Unless and until we find a way to do virtual council meetings, and I do not think that's a good substitute for in-person discussions, we need you here. What will it take? Two components are in governance. Meaningful elections with the E words, elections and electioneering. So we can encourage people to think about and advocate for college policy, which would be ratified by the elections. Revised bylaws that more clearly reflect what we tell each other, that the council makes policy. But we also have a lot of work to do that needs to start outside the ACR. First, leaders. Academic department chairs have a lot of say in how their members spend their time and are compensated. Jim Brink, Carolyn Meltzer, Sherry Cannon are three who come to mind immediately, who served on the Board of Chancellors and who have been enormously supportive of their faculties serving on college commissions, the Board of Chancellors, CSC, etc. Faculty cannot do this without the support of their chairs. Private practice leaders must follow suit. But is there the same degree of support anymore? That support starts at the individual practice level. Leaders, you need to serve and to encourage a culture of participation as officers, committee members, in the chapters, and in the ACR. The ACR needs your perspective, but your practice will also benefit by that influence and also by what you bring back to your associates. There's no room for apathy or procrastination here. So in summary, I've tried to point out the challenges facing our specialty. Some are in the traditional purview of the ACR, others are issues with which we and our practice partners and associates will determine the future of our specialty. My purpose today is to galvanize us for many tasks ahead at this time of numerous inflection points for our specialty. As I usually do, I bring a quote from my most revered historical figure, Winston Churchill. He asserted, "For myself, I'm an optimist. It does not seem to be much use to be anything else." And another one is, "The pessimist sees difficulty in every opportunity. The optimist sees opportunity in every difficulty." I see great opportunities here and now. Some of you may remember Dr. Emanuel's presentation at this podium 2 years ago. I prefer Mark Twain's premature response to the premature publication of his eulogy. What changes would be in a Van Winkle presidential address to ACR 2038? I'm not going to go into that. I hope to be here to see it. The sustainability of our specialty and the ACR are intertwined and highly dependent on the issues above and on you. Oh, well, sort of a little quick on the trigger finger here. I truly believe that the actions of the ACR and our members going forward from today, the success of which will be made more likely with a strong, well-founded college, a strong chapter network, and a revitalized council, a pipeline of leaders who are representative of the interests of our members to bring ideas to the college and take ideas home to our departments and our practices. I hope I have given you the confidence that our college is doing some amazing things. But you know me, we can always do better, and let's not stop. No, I'm not done. I just need a glass of a little water and a little breather here. So, before I fell asleep, one more time, I used to think that gratitude mostly accrued to the benefit of the person receiving the thanks. Certainly that's the main purpose, but actually it feels just as good to the one who is the grateful one. Adrian, my wife, and my best friend, your support throughout our 44 years of marriage, and certainly during my career and years in the radiology leadership, demonstrated not only your confidence in and devotion to me, but our entire family's shared ethic of doing good and giving back to the community that has done so well by us. I'm glad that you, like I, have made lifelong friends here and benefited by our mutual involvement in the ACR. My children. Adam, who's here today, an alternate counselor from Connecticut. Allison, who lives in Spain and could not be here due to the exigencies of her new job with a startup company. Emma, my daughter-in-law, Adam's wife, the new glue to our family. You are the first and remain the first of many and a growing number of reasons why I get up every day. My parents and in-laws, only one of which is around today, my mother, whose support and love have always been my bedrock. By the way, Mom thinks I'm the boss of all radiologists. I've not put her phone number down here. I don't want anybody to call and disabuse her of that. My many, many mentors. Some of you are here today, and most of whom do not even know how much you have influenced me. Someday, I hope to have the time to tell you individually. The senior partners of my practice who recruited me, chose me to lead them, and gave me the latitude to improvise and to lead us in uncharted waters, which included devotion of time and effort to the ACR, my participation in which, in turn, has provided amazing dividends to our practice, our hospitals, and our patients. The former and current leaders and members of the staff and staff of the Connecticut chapter, which have helped make ours a model chapter despite our small size. The ACR staff. Can't by any means go into individual names, but all past leaders that you have heard have lauded the staff with whom they worked as an amazing group of people. They were correct. Their continued excellence, despite turnover, attests to the new staff's skill and drive to succeed. The culture of our organization with whom we have been so fortunate to serve. Lastly, addressing the council is the right place to end my ACR tenure and an amazing personal journey. My years as counselor and years as steering committee and board of chancellors have been an enriching experience, more than one could ever have imagined. Our specialty of radiology hooked me because of its literally infinite opportunity for learning. And that was before the ACR. Getting to know so many of my fellow counselors, sitting around the table with my talented colleagues on the amazing steering committees on which I served and led, and serving as chancellor with the tremendously accomplished, brilliant, and thoughtful people. While I know we've had occasional differences of opinion, I cannot tell you how many times our discussions have yielded new perspectives and knowledge for me. If the college has gotten a tiny fraction of benefit from my involvement compared to the personal growth of which I have been the beneficiary, I would consider my years of service a success. Thank you and good night. I'll see you in 20 years.